Well, greetings and good morning. And let us talk about the 1941-42 season. This is where things start to get kind of dark for one franchise that's on its way out. The Brooklyn, that's right, Brooklyn. The New York Americans are renamed the Brooklyn Americans by their owner, Red Dutton, who was the manager for the New York Americans. The NHL gives them ownership. They're like, we're desperate. Red Dutton seems to be the guy who's in the best position to figure this out, so they give him a chance. And he renames the team the Brooklyn Americans, thinking of the Dodgers and the Yankees, and reigniting that rivalry within the city with the idea that two teams in New York, one named Brooklyn, could really survive. And you know, the Islanders have almost... I really believe that the New York Islanders were really close to rebranding themselves as a Brooklyn team a couple years ago. It really felt like it. So I'm really glad the NHL hasn't gone down this road twice, because for Brooklyn, it actually didn't help at all. They played out of Madison Square Garden, the same as the New York Rangers. The difference is the Brooklyn Americans are down here, and the New York Rangers are up here with a 29-17-2 record. Toronto's 27-18-3. Boston's 25-17-6, which is impressive, and we'll get to that. Chicago's 22-23-3. Detroit 19-25-4. Montreal 18-27-3. So again, incremental improvement being made by the Montreal Canadiens. And the Brooklyn Americans, as I said, 16-29-3 at the bottom. And this would be their last year as an official NHL team. So starting tomorrow, it'll only be 6 teams on this board. But the Brooklyn Americans, New York Americans, almost Pittsburgh, almost St. Louis, but blocked Americans, will still officially be a team on hiatus until 1947. But at the end of the 1941-42 season, they sold their players. Now, Boston, who finished third, did so without their Kraut line. They all went to the military. They'll say, we're going to go over and fight in the war. So World War II is affecting things now. That's Milt Schmidt, Woody Dumart, Bobby Bauer. So all 3 of them are now gone. The Boston Bruins fall, and of course, the Bruins won the Cup in the video I did yesterday. They will not win the Cup again until Phil Esposito comes along with Bobby Orr in 1970. They win the Stanley Cup. The Hart Trophy went to Tom Anderson of the Brooklyn Americans. Just that BRO is kind of throwing me off. Grant Warwick of the New York Rangers wins the Calder. Frank Brimsick of the Boston Bruins wins the Vezina, which again goes to the goalie with the lowest goals against average. Sillapp Sr. of the Toronto Maple Leafs wins the Lady Byng, and Sillapp Sr. is about to become a cult hero along with a whole Leafs team. I did this differently today. So the quarterfinals are here. Boston beats Chicago 2-1 in overtime. Chicago beats Boston 4-0. Boston wins Game 3, 3-2 over Chicago. Boston qualifies for the semifinals. Other quarterfinal, Detroit wins 2-1 over Montreal. Montreal wins 5-0. Detroit wins Game 3, 6-2 to advance. Semifinals. So again, this is the top 2 teams in the NHL squaring off with a chance to reach the finals. Toronto wins Game 1, 3-1. They win Game 2, 4-2. They lose Game 3, 3-0. They win Game 4, 2-1. So they're up 3-1 there. They lose Game 4, 3-1. So they're up 3-2. And then they win 3-2 in Game 6 to win the series in 6. But they won't do things easy in the final. The other semifinals, Detroit and Boston. Detroit wins 6-4. Detroit wins 3-1. So Detroit has won 3 games in a row in the playoffs. It's pretty good going into the finals. Keep her going. Detroit wins both games in Toronto, 3-2 and 4-2. They've now won 5 in a row. They go home. They win 5-2. That's 6 wins in a row in the playoffs. They're going to win the... No. Toronto rattles off 4 wins in a row. It's the only time in the history of the Stanley Cup that the finals is awarded to a team that lost the first 3 games. Toronto wins by scores of 4-3, 9-3, 3-0, and 3-1. The ones that stand out to me are the 9-3 win in Toronto. That's huge. And then the Detroit being shut out at home in Game 6. Those really stand out as being the ones that likely enable Toronto to win that Game 7 by a score of 3-1. But it's a fun season. It's not fun for everybody, as there are a lot of players going to military service. And I will do a video on players who went to military service in World War II because it's interesting. Most of them came back and continued their careers. Some of them weren't the same player when they came back that they'd been before they left, because they've aged by a couple or 3 years, and, you know, everything changes. But there you go. The Toronto Maple Leafs, your 1942 Stanley Cup champions.